Hey guys, good morning. Casey here with VanTripping.com and Mountain Bluebird. I just got back from a trip out in the Blackrock Conservation Area, which is otherwise known as the playa, where Burning Man does reside. The playa, actually, where Burning Man resides, is a very small part of a playa, large playa that's only one part of a playa of the greater Blackrock Conservation Area, which is, I think, around 2 million square miles. I may get that wrong, maybe 2 million square acres, but I think it's a big area. It's enormous. It's made up of many sub-playas. I think it's 20 different mountain ranges that surround that area. There's several of the immigrant trails that travel through that area, some of which I have driven through with my 2016 four-wheel drive Sprinter van. Very arduous, difficult four-wheel drive trails, or fairly arduous and difficult four-wheel drive trails through some of it. Some of it's underwater all the time. It's not all this kind of like dry desert that one thinks it is. And there are herds of pronghorn antelope and wild burros and wild horses and other animals that do reside out there. So it's quite an interesting and fascinating place that I've been exploring quite a bit of on multiple different trips. And I just came back and completely washed my van down to get nice and clean, get that playa dust off as there is some driving across the playa or on dusty roads that I did on this trip, as is typical out there. And I'm also draining out the water tanks. I don't only do this probably a couple times a year. I do have an RV garage I can park my van in, so I don't need to winterize my tanks, never do. I do use my Sprinter throughout the year. So I leave my water tanks with at least some water in them all year round, even through the winter, at least half full or around half full, and that will prevent them from freezing. But nonetheless, I just drain my water tanks just to kind of as a safety precaution, something to do every now and then. And by doing so, drain the water tanks, I just ensure that I have good water quality and don't have any kind of anything really building up in there. So I drain the water tanks, I let them dry out a little bit, and then I go ahead and I flush them when I'm refilling them, and then let them refill. I'm going to show you how I refill and why I do it this way. I think it's certainly different than the way other people do things, and so I'm going to give you a little tour of that right now. And so let's start maybe on the outside. One is, if you look along the side of my van, right here, you'll notice that there is no water fill along here. There's also no electrical connection. Now, let's go around the other side. You'll come around the other side over here, and you'll see also no water fill. There is one shore power connection. This is an auto eject, so I can show you more on that later. But when I have a shore power connection plugged into here, it's pretty fascinating. It's plugged in, it's in my garage, and then when I go to start the van, it automatically kicks the shore power connection out, so I don't accidentally drive away with the shore power connection still connected. So I'll go into more on that in a future video. But anyways, you notice no water fill connections. And I did it that way intentionally because I didn't want anybody to be able to get into my water supply. If there's an outside water connection, not water fill, anybody can really open that up and put whatever they want down into your water tanks. Granted, you can always lock those, but also it adds aerodynamic drag. It's a little something that sticks out in the side, so you can grab on branches and things like that when you're on tight trails, or get ripped off and cause some body damage in a repair. Plus, it can also cause water leaks because it's obviously a penetration through the body. So instead of doing, opening myself up to all those issues and rust and everything else that can happen from making any kind of a penetration and leakage over time, my shore power connection is below the floor of the van, so even if there was some kind of water leak or something, it's not going to get into the van. There's also, by that shore power connection being below the floor of the van, I don't have any penetration of thermal transfer of air that can get through from the outside to the inside of the camper. The same is true for the water fill, and also that could be true too when you have your water fill connected to the outside directly through the camper. It's obviously a place of thermal transfer, and water is incredibly thermally conductive, and so it's going to transfer that heat, and also it's going to potentially cause not just transfer heat to outside, but also cause that cold to come to the inside and cause the condensation on that. If there's water in that line and it's warm, it hits that warm air from the inside of the van, or also can cause that water line to freeze on the inside, because obviously that cold air is transferring from the outside through that water fill line. So I put them on the inside. So let's talk through that. All right, so here we go. Right in this back corner here, driver's side corner, I have an outdoor shower. That is right here. I keep in the rear door. This just simply plugs right in, and I just simply turn on a hot and cold plumbed right here. And so I can easily just turn that on, plugged right in, and I can quickly just do a wash down, rinse down. Also, my vent for my water tanks is up high right here, and this is all my water tanks. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 freshwater tanks plus a hot water tank, and then also my gray water tank. All the freshwater tanks are vented to right here. I have a screen on them to prevent any kind of like bugs or anything from getting in there. But by having the vent inside, I don't have to worry about dust and things getting into my tank as I'm driving down a really dusty, dirty road, and all that dust getting sucked into those tanks and building up sediment and so forth in there, and obviously fouling your water quality. Now, obviously my gray tank has a separate vent. Let me show you that real quickly. Let's just walk around over here. And the gray tank, because it is right down here, you can actually see my electric valve right down there. That's I just flip a switch and that opens up my electric valve. My gray tank vent is actually right here in the rear wheel well, and it comes up right here, and it's also got a filtered screen on it. That is a pretty durable plastic, and that's where that vents. And the reason why I have my gray water tank vented to the outside instead of inside, because one, it smells, but also if I ever do overfill it, it's flowing outside of the van. And so by being in the wheel well in the protected space, it's up high. So about the only way I can really get that vent up high or higher. And so that's the way I take care of that. While I'm here, let me just show you one more thing I also did into this wheel well. I put in an outside all-weather proof housing with a GFCI outlet. This is a dedicated exterior outlet. It's a weather tight box. I never had issues with it. I keep it shut off, but unless I'm using it. But it's great for connecting up power tools or outdoor lights or something like that, or someone else who needs 120 volt power. So that's one way I can get to that there. So back to my water system. So this is my fill. And I have a valve on it so I can keep it closed, and by keeping it closed I don't have any kind of contamination that can get in through this. I have a simple screw fitting right here, and this then flows into a large water filter. So I have a large water filter right here. I can put whatever cartridge I want and change it as I want right there. So that's basically what that is. To connect this up, I simply plug this into my water connection port. A little difficult to do here while I'm hand holding this. Okay. Now we have that all tight. Let that go. And so what I can do is I can open up my valve that goes into my fresh water, open up this valve, and boom, let it fill. And that's it. And once I start seeing water purging out of here, just burbling out, then I know that my water tanks are full. And right now what I have is I actually have a valve, a drain valve on each of the 4 freshwater tanks. I open those up, and so I'm pushing a little bit of water out of those right now. I'll close those as each of those tanks starts to fill, just to give it a little bit of a drain. Just push again a little bit of that kind of water that was in there out. Just make sure I'm getting good clean water in. Also, incidentally, on my filter here, my water intake filter, I used to have a really high quality intake filter that removed even chlorine. I found like that was a bad idea, because my chlorine is actually good for keeping those freshwater tanks fresh, from keeping things like algae or things building up in those. And not that I ever had that issue, but you can start to kind of taste the water quality going bad after it sits for a while. And so I used to drain them and let them air out more regularly. Now I don't have to do that, because the filter I put in is more of a sediment filter, so remove more things like hard metals and sediment, so things like iron and stuff like that may be in the water quality that's coming in. And so any kind of really bad water quality, but it does leave the chlorine in, and that's actually, in my opinion, good, because it does keep our freshwater in our freshwater tanks fresh. And so it keeps things like bacteria and algae from growing in there. And so that's actually healthy. Even though we may not like the taste of it, there's usually such a small amount in there, it's not problematic. I'm mostly using my water for hand washing, occasionally a shower inside, but also mostly also for drinking water. And so that is my drinking water source. I don't separate out my drinking water from my other freshwater needs. I don't see a need. I used to have a small little filter that I placed to kind of remove that chlorine at the freshwater intake, or the kitchen sink, where I mostly filled it for freshwater. But I later removed it because this found to be more of a maintenance issue, problematic issue. And so I did find that really added value, and plus it actually felt like it actually didn't really actually improve the taste. It actually worsened it. And not that I like the taste of chlorine, but I think it's just kind of it just wasn't the right filter that could really fit in there. Let's face it, a Sprinter van looks big from the outside, but it's still a pretty small space to try to, make a home out of inside, especially for a guy like me who has space, not that you can see right now, but really for 4 to 6 bikes, skis, inflatable kayaks, paddleboards, things like that, so that when I travel, which is pretty regularly in this thing, multiple times a week, or I shouldn't say multiple times a week, but going out for adventures, I often try to do multi-sports, and so I may take a paddleboard so I can go for a paddleboard after I go for a mountain bike ride or something like that when I go somewhere. So yes, so there you go. That's my water system, at least in general, and how I do fill it on the inside here, why you do it that way, why you have it vented as well. And also, one of these slinky hoses does tend to work out great. Having a valve right here to be able to shut that off is really convenient, because I can shut it off and then I can unscrew it and then go ahead and pull it back and unscrew it from the cap. And this way I'm not having water splash all over while that's happening. So that's how I do it, and hope that was helpful. And certainly subscribe. I'll provide more certainly videos in the future on other systems and so forth that hopefully will be helpful to you. And by all means, do comment if you have any questions, or if there's anything else that you'd like to learn more about, whether it be the water system or other parts of my van build out. And I'll be glad to help out in any way that I can, and give you some insights to help you with your van build and also your adventures and getting out there and enjoying camping, van life, and just enjoying life. All right. Cheers. Have yourself a great day.